How big of a risk do you think these high levels of debt in whatever market you're looking at in Asia, how big of a risk is that for the economies there?
Well, Betty, I think the biggest risk on the Asian debt front to me is the point that Enda just made, which is corporate debt, especially SOE debt in China. And this is tied up into the whole nexus of state-owned enterprise reform, which has really been lagging. And, these are government-owned entities that have an insatiable thirst for credit. And, the state-directed banking system has been more than willing to provide that credit. And that's a problem. The government is focused repeatedly on deleveraging, as they like to put it. But, we don't see any meaningful progress on the reform front yet, and that's a concern of mine.
Stephen, I want to talk more about Asia, but let me just bring this back to the U.S. here. Speaking about easy money, right? We've seen the easy money start to decline here in the U.S. The Fed about to make its next policy decision, another rate hike. What is it? Fed Fund futures out now pricing at 100% that we're going to see on Wednesday. The big question is what we see in 2018. Where do you stand on rate hikes?
Well, I'm in the camp, Betty, that would like to see them move very aggressively to normalize rates, because a failure to do that runs a risk of repeating the same mistake they made prior to the last crisis, a glacial normalization, allowing markets to remain frothy and the U.S. economy to continue to grow on the basis of frothy markets. And we're at that same point again. And I think the longer the Fed draws out this normalization campaign, the greater the risk that we're headed to another crisis. Even
with very little wage pressure, Stephen?
Look, the story about normalization should not be inflation. It should simply be getting interest rates back to a more sustainable long-term level and markets priced more on the basis of fundamentals rather than on the injection of excess liquidity by central banks. To tie normalization to inflation misses the whole point of unconventional policy, which pushed rates down and balance sheets up in response to an emergency which has long since passed.